Okay, great. So let's jump in to some background on TaroWorks. So TaroWorks really came out of the Grameen Foundation, and the Grameen Foundation has been working in many programs in the field for the past 14 years as it relates to mobile tools. A lot of the work has to do with community knowledge workers in the agriculture space. There's also work with social enterprises and in mHealth. So the impetus for TaroWorks really came from the need that we saw as Grameen Foundation's field programs to collect information through a field officer, what we call kind of a human intermediated approach. So it's in many cases an agricultural extension worker who is both collecting information about farmers, but also need to push information out for the extension workers to better do their jobs. So we saw that there was a need outside of Grameen Foundation's own programs in other groups, in other countries, in other industries, and that's really where TaroWorks came from. So it became sort of a generalized tool that we could offer any organization with a field staff that they need to manage. So that's kind of the start of TaroWorks. In terms of the tool itself, there's basically two apps that comprise TaroWorks. One of the apps sits on the Salesforce.com interface. So Salesforce.com is a cloud-based database or cloud-based CRM system. It's where all of the data is stored. It's where you run your reports and dashboards at the end of the day. It's where you manage your mobile users. So all of the back-end administrative magic happens on the Salesforce side, where you create the surveys, etc. Now, when all of that is set, you can publish, and that's when it becomes available on the Android. So there's a corresponding Android app for TaroWorks, and that could be on an Android tablet or a smartphone. But that's essentially your field officer's channel into that database. So again, you can collect information, but you can also pull up information from that database as well. And it's all kind of available offline. So it really gives them more power to do their job. Okay, so it's these two systems that talk to each other is the essential structure of it. In terms of the flow, the administrator would first build your forms, design your jobs, set performance targets, set up mobile users, all of that on the Salesforce side. Then when it's published, that's when it becomes available for the field officers. So field officer would sync at the beginning of the day when they do have reception. That means they'll get the latest surveys and layest data, and they can go off into the field when they're offline and still have access to all of this information. So then when they do have reception again, they can transfer it back into the cloud in real time. So as long as those surveys are mapped into the database correctly, your dashboards and reports will immediately update. So we have people syncing immediately in the field. If they do have relatively good reception, we have people syncing at the end of the day, at the end of the week, kind of all over the place, but it really depends on the field conditions. But we have kind of a spectrum of users. So that's the flow. The other thing to call out is the difference between TaroWorks and some other mobile data collection tools out there. We really consider ourselves to be a mobile CRM or mobile case management tool. So we go beyond just data collection to also allow the field officers to pull up information about their records. So if they're assigned a region, or if they're assigned a clinic or a school or a farmer, they can pull up information about that individual record and see historical information. And likewise, you can also assign these records to individual field staff as well. So it becomes sort of an extension of a database, but available offline. In terms of performance targets, you can track weekly and monthly targets for your field officers, and then they can see their progress against those targets in the field. There's sales and distribution management. So this is being able to do kind of short forms. So going away from just long kind of check-in surveys, this could be tracking orders or tracking maintenance tickets. So things that might happen more frequently, but there's a lot of forms around those processes. In terms of distribution management, we also have clients using our barcode scanner to track the movement of goods as well. There's also access to files. So this is really helpful for kind of training purposes in the field. So this is the ability to show, as a field officer, you can pull up a training video or a PDF document or Word or an Excel spreadsheet. And those are available offline as well. So you're not streaming it from the internet. And then there's a section here for impact M&E. So we have the Progress Out of Poverty Index library embedded into TaroWorks. So if you're using the PPI, you can just start with any one of our templates for any of the countries, and you'll automatically have the questions and all of the points, and we have some pre-created reports around PPI as well. And if you're not familiar with the PPI, the Progress Out of Poverty Index is a country-specific scorecard, 10 questions, or about 10 questions each, that helps you estimate how likely a household is to fall under a particular poverty level. So that's helpful as you track progress of your program or your intervention. So that's sort of the features that TaroWorks we think set ourselves apart. And then lastly, before I go into the actual demo, is to show that we started off as wanting to spread into different organizations, different countries, and different sectors, and we're super happy that we've come so far in such a short time. So we've been used by about 90 clients now in over 30 countries, and you'll see, yeah, they kind of run the gamut from agriculture groups to housing, construction, to clean energy and sanitation. Cool, so I'm just going to switch over to the demo portion. Okay, so here I am in Salesforce. For those of you who might not be familiar with Salesforce, so Salesforce is a standalone system. Like, you could use it without TaroWorks. So consider TaroWorks to be one app on the Salesforce platform. So what Salesforce is used for is usually kind of relationship management or tracking accounts. So they already have a pretty robust way of tracking those relationships. Additionally, reports and dashboards is also part of Salesforce. So everything that comes into the system, you can create reports and dashboards on. And as you see, I have TaroWorks enabled here, and so TaroWorks has these additional 5 tabs here, which I'll be going through, but it's creating jobs, creating surveys, setting up your mobile users, setting your performance targets, and viewing information on maps. And just to give some context for the demo itself, I'll be talking about a fictional social enterprise called Aquacomb. They sell water filters and dig wells and want to track the outcome of people who use these services and products. So this could be something that management is reviewing at the end of the week, for example. So here they're tracking what is the poverty rate of the people that we're serving, how has that changed over time. I can see the different filter sales broken out by gender. I can track the sales by month for different products. I can start to break things out by region and tracking sort of sales information versus number of sick days experienced by users and the times they go to the well. So you can see different regions have different outcomes, and so you could clearly see if something's not going as planned, you can go in and check on what's happening. Again, it's all dummy data. So yeah, so that's kind of the goal, is to get that kind of visibility from the field. On the TaroWorks side, we also offer a way to view information on a map. So I could see, I want to see where all of my well sites are in Amber City East. So that actually populates this kind of information. I can hover over and see some of those details. And these can be pretty detailed as well. So I can see where all of the well sites, where 60% of the users are female, or you can kind of set this up to be whatever you want. Okay, so that's maps. Okay, so that's sort of assuming that everything and all this information is saved into your database, how you can visualize it. So where TaroWorks comes in is help you get that information into the system. So let me go into my surveys, and we'll go into one that has been pre-created. Go into my question builder. Okay, so this is the actual question builder. I think if you're familiar with a tool like SurveyMonkey, this should be pretty familiar, so I won't go over too much of this. A couple of things I will highlight are that all of these questions are drag and drop, and you can switch the order of these as well by just dragging, so you don't have to know any coding for this. A couple of the question types that I want to call out are that you can scan barcodes, you can capture GPS locations, you can take photos and capture signatures. And the way that you create a question is, again, drag over here. I can say, are you present? You can make it required or not for validation purposes. Save. There's my question. For numerical fields, you can also put in minimums and maximums, so you don't have kind of fat finger errors. And for text questions and barcode questions, you can actually put in additional validations, like it must have an @ sign, or it must be X number of digits long, or it has to start with the letters AA, for example. So you can put in a lot of validation. So that's the question builder itself. There are a couple other cool features up top here. So there's scoring. So this is if your multiple choice responses have some kind of point or a weight associated with it. You can add those in. So for the PPI, these all have scores, and so we've already included those for you. But some of our users are using scoring to add in their own credit scoring algorithms. So that's been pretty cool. There's also logic. So this is skip logic. If you'll notice, I just added in this pregnancy question. This doesn't pertain to everybody, obviously. So I can say, I only want to show this question when, you can add conditions, when gender is, and it should pick up what options I put in, is female. So then you can see the condition there. So that's logic. And then the last section is field mapping. Let me just discard that. In terms of field mapping, this is how you get this information from the survey into your database. So it's asking, okay, you're asking all of these questions in this form. Where in the database do you want to save it to? What table? And are you attaching it to an existing record? Are you updating an existing record, or are you creating a new record? So if you want to track things over time, for example, you need a record of every visit. So it's kind of, it directly relates to how you can report on this form. Great, so that's the survey portion. In terms of jobs, so a lot of our organizations are doing much more than just collecting data. We also want the field officers to pull up existing information or to show a video. So a job is where you start to layer these tasks together into one single standard operating procedure. So a job, some of our clients one day might be going to do a registration, another day might be doing a training, another day might be doing just a simple check-in. So each of these distinct processes we consider a job. And they might have different forms involved, different steps, and so the job builder is where you create that. So the top part here in the drill down hierarchy, this is how you kind of assign people. This is the case management portion. So you can track, you can kind of, as a field officer, go to the region that you're in and continue drilling down to the right subject for this job. So that I'm going from region to the well site, to the member that's at that well site, and I'm creating a visit. And I think this will make more sense when I go to the mobile side. The next part of the jobs is to set up your tasks. There's three main tasks: the view, collect, and the view resource. In this case, I want the field officer to look up the last time they checked on a person, see what happened, then to fill in the form for this visit, and then lastly to show a hand washing tutorial. So this way you know that when Elaine finished this job, I went through all of those steps. Okay, cool. So let me now switch my, take off my administrative hat and become a field officer. So I'm going to share my tablet screen here. So please see that. Okay, so I'm logged in, so all of this information will be specific to me. Again, the first thing I would do before I head off into the field is to sync. That'll bring down any latest versions of jobs onto my device, and if I have anything saved, it'll sync back into the system. So let's say I've just done that, and I'm heading out to the field. The first thing I can do is I can check my performance. It looks like these are the jobs I'm supposed to do this week and month. Looks like I've only done 3 out of 25 of my member check-ins, so a lot more work to do. Let's do one of those check-ins. Go into my jobs. Here's a list of all of the jobs that have been assigned to me. So let's say we're going to do a community member update. So this is, I'm checking up on someone who's already in the system. So I don't need to register them again. Again, you'll see those 3 tasks. I'm going to see what happened the first time I checked in, then do the survey, and then the tutorial. So let's start. Here are the regions that have been assigned to me. So this could be completely different from the list that you see when you're logged in. So this is what's kind of been assigned. So let's say I'm in Amber City East today. Here are all the wells that are in Amber City East. Examine well 11. And there's only one person here, Joseph. So let's check up on Joseph. These are all the previous visits to him, so let's see what happened the last time I checked in. Looks like he had gone to the well 6 times, excuse me, and was sick 3 days. And I'm supposed to stress the importance of hand washing this time around. So here you can, as an admin, you can actually set, which fields you want to show. Obviously, you might not want to display your entire database. I think that would, kill your bandwidth. But what are those critical pieces of information that'll help your field officer with this particular job? Okay, so let's go into the actual data collection portion. So you'll see that it already knows who I'm checking up on. I don't have to hand type this in and risk errors. I can record my location. So let's say this time Joseph went to the well more times and was less sick. You can also take a photo. This is our workspace. Saved. I'm going to gather a signature for verification. I suppose that should be Joseph, but and then I can say any issues to check on next time. I can say, check water container. Okay, next. Let's mark that survey as complete. We'll go to the next task, which is to play the hand washing tutorial. So this video, or the audio is just coming on my tablet here. But this, you can actually upload any video of yours. So this could be a completely customized library. Okay, great. Let's go to the next task. So at this point, you can sync later if you don't have reception, or you can sync now. For the purposes of this demo, I'm just going to sync it now. Okay, so as it's syncing, I'm going to switch back to Salesforce, and I'll show you the three main ways that you can see this data back in your system. So the first way is in your Surveys tab. You'll see this response count column here. If I click on this number, it'll pull up all of the data that's been collected for this particular survey. So it's what we call a flat file. It's not being mapped anywhere, and each row is one submission. So you can export these to CSV if you're doing analysis outside of Salesforce. And then if you've made changes to the survey, you can pull down various versions and see what's been responded for each version. I only have one version for this one. Okay, so that's one way to see it. Another way to view this information, so let me go back here, is to create these custom tabs. So I've created one for well site member, the well site, and the regions, which you'll remember from my data model. So let's go find Joseph here. Okay, so you'll see that the photo has been updated. There's my signature. That's where I'm located right now. And then if I keep scrolling down, I can see a list of all related lists for this person. So all of my previous visit information, all of my filter sales, all of the training attendance records. So it starts to build a pretty powerful profile of this particular person, or you can have a profile about a well site or overall region. So these are different levels that you can create. And this is all customizable. Obviously, this might not be your model, but this would all be customized. And then the third way is back in your dashboards. So as long as all the information is updated or synced and mapped correctly, then these should just automatically update. So let me just refresh. So that is a quick tour of TaroWorks. Actually, one thing I'll show, so I showed the well site member level. Let me just show quickly a warehouse. So in this case, we're thinking about purchasing supplies and then to a central warehouse, and then providing those supplies to individual well sites as they're being built. So if you want to track inventory, you can start to create kind of roll-up summary information. So sort of looking at supply requests and purchases, you can start to pull together kind of balance, like supply balances. So any of these levels, you can start to kind of summarize information directly on the record if it's something that you're tracking pretty consistently. Or you can create like a custom report for a specific query. Cool. So at this point, let me open it up to questions. I haven't gone through all of the features because there are so many. So if there's anything in particular that you're curious about, please let me know. Let me open this up here. Great. Doesn't seem like there are any questions. Must have answered everything. Give it a couple more minutes. Let me see if there's anything else to highlight here. Hi, Cecilia. Maybe you want to type your question, or let me try unmuting you. Oh. Okay, the question is, doesn't it take a lot of space on tablets to have the information available offline? Yes, it certainly does take space. It depends on the kind of information that you would want to sync onto the database. That's why we do avoid syncing the entire database. Just think of what is the most important information for your field officers. It also would take some storage if you're planning to use a lot of training videos, for example. So I think, if it's just data, it doesn't take that much space. But if you start going into videos and stuff, that would definitely make a larger impact. So I think we'd want to have a conversation just to understand how much information you really need for your field staff. Another question. In my organization, I have an Oracle database. How can I store data for TaroWorks in the database? So TaroWorks is based only on Salesforce right now. Let me go back to this. So the Salesforce is the back end of TaroWorks. That's the main database. However, we do work with, we talk to a lot of organizations who might need integrations with Salesforce. So there is, or Salesforce does have a well-documented API, so it's possible to then integrate that Salesforce data into another database. Or if you have, some information that you need to come into Salesforce, you can integrate as well that way. But yeah, it is important to note that Salesforce is the main backend for TaroWorks. And then another question is, are PPIs available in local languages? So you can find all of the available PPIs on the progressoutofpoverty.org website. In some cases, they are available in local languages. So like, I know in Haiti, they have English, French, and Creole. So I would urge you to take a look into that website to see what's available. Actually, that's a good question around kind of languages. So TaroWorks does have some different levels of how you can use different languages. Let me just go back here. So you can see any job. So in this case, the Nepal PPI, this is in Nepali. So the questions itself, if you remember the question builder, you can type in your question. You can type it in using any language. So that'll just kind of show up here. And as you can see, it also works with non-Roman characters. The other option is kind of the system language. So this, it's like instructions, start job. Like if I go back to the home screen, like sync, performance, jobs. These are all based on whatever your phone is set to. So if your Android is set to English, this will show up in English. The other ones that we have available are French, Spanish, Khmer. I think there's one, Vietnamese. And so we actually sort of just outsource this or kind of open source this. If you need a separate language, we can give you kind of the list of all of these system terms, and we can get those in. I guess one note is that these do have to match with system, like Android system languages. And if it's not, let me see. So the default is English. So if we don't have a translation for a particular language, then the default here is English. The third way that you can kind of look at information with multiple languages is that you can have different versions of survey. So you could have, a registration form in French. You can have one in Spanish. You can have one in Swahili. But if you're asking the same questions in all of them, or the same kind of multiple choice questions, as a manager in your reports, it can aggregate across languages. So if you have gender question being asked in different questions or different forms, you can see it all aggregated in whatever home language you have your Salesforce set to, like in this case English. Kind of a language side note. Cool. Any other questions? Great. I think that seems to be it. So I will wrap up here. If you have additional questions, you can always reach out to me personally. I'm at Elaine, E-L-A-I-N-E, at TaroWorks.org, or you can reach out to our kind of general email at hello@TaroWorks.org. So with that, I will end this call, but I look forward to hearing more from each of you if you do have further questions. Thanks, everyone.